I think the first step is always to get to know your students and have a relationship with them.
Well, I think the first thing that came to my mind was that you really have to know your students. So one of the things someone told me was take those first 6 weeks, get to know your kids.
Establish rapport.
They start with all the tools or what they think are all the tools, which is great, but you have to get to know your kids first.
And once you've established that, then you can go ahead and find out what their learning styles are and their learning strengths. And when you know those, then you can integrate them into everything that grade level. At this case, it's grade 2. So grade 2 level, and you find ways for them to do the exact same assignments, but using their strengths and their learning styles.
Yep.
Once you establish rapport, it might take the whole month of September, but once you establish rapport and a connection with the kids, there's a willingness to learn, there's a willingness on their part to take risks. It calms behaviors. It sets the whole tone for the whole year. It sets the environment, the tone for the whole classroom.
You need to understand their learning styles, what interests them, or you just can't move forward. So you have to know how you're going to present your curriculum in different ways to all these kids. And the only way you know is by getting to know them first.
Know what kind of things they like. Are they into cars? Are they into Barbies? What do they like? And get to know their learning styles. So what types of things are they more geared to with their learning? Are they more visual learners? Are they active learners? What type of learners they are?
For example, yesterday we did math centers, pardon me, and there were 6 groups and 3 of us. And generally there'd be 2 of us. And the one assistant would be assigned to a child with Down syndrome, and then there'd be 27 other bodies. So you have to teach independence. You teach independence and you train and you teach them what exactly are the expectations before you begin. And you also teach peer training. So if you have, I teach that every child has a strength, and sometimes my strength is going to be different than someone else's, and that's when a good partnership can be created, because my strength can help the other person and the other person vice versa. So teaching peer training is probably a big part of helping with differentiated instruction, because you and I could be working on different activities at the same time with the same content and the same goal, but doing it differently. I could be doing a comic strip and you could be doing a poem, but we can still help each other.
Sometimes it's good to group homogeneously, because then that gives your upper end a chance to, do some talking and some brainstorming and some writing at their level. Math, I find sometimes it's really good to group homogeneously. If you can get with a colleague, I do remember teaching with Paul Bryant with some awesome years of teaching, and he would take the middle and upper end children, and I would take the ones that were struggling more, and I would do manipulatives, and I could slow the pace down for those children, and he could enrich and do computer work and come up with all kinds of projects for them, and it was a fabulous way to teach with 2 people. You can do it with 3. I've done it with 3 other teachers in my grade level. If that's not possible, then within the classroom you can have leaders of groups, and they can kind of help and we can buddy up, or you can also do homogeneous grouping. It depends on the subject. I'd say math is easier to do homogeneously, and language arts is easier if you have some leaders in your group and do heterogeneous groups.
Well, I think the key to this again is the training. You have to give it time to teach the kids how to do those independent activities, because they have to be able to handle doing their own thing. One of my rules was the 3 Bs. They were only allowed to come see me if there was blood, broken bones, or barf. And they knew that during that time, that was my time with those 3 or 4 kids, and they had to solve their problem in their own independent groups. So definitely you want to make sure that you've taken the time to train them, to show them what you expect for them to do at each individual center, what type of independent learning activity they have. Show them, take the time. it could take up to a month. For other groups, it may take a week. It depends on the group of kids that you have. And make sure that you're gearing things to their independent level. If it's too hard for them, then they'll tune out right away. It has to be right where they're working at so that they can continue building that independent level, but have enough of a challenge that it's still interesting for them.
Your groupings have to keep changing, but they're flexible because you can change what that group means. So if you've got one group, you don't want to have them consistently in that group where they're going to think, well, we're the ones who are the lower readers. You got to find a way, and that's why actually Daily 5 is so good, because they change reading buddies, but they're doing the same things, and there's the differentiation. And they learn a little bit about how others learn. So it just works really well.
One of my field trips was a really good example. I have a group of 7 kids right now who are all complex learning needs. We went on a field trip. Now we went on a field trip to the art gallery, and what they got out of that field trip was different for all of them. So as a teacher, you have to decide, okay, what is the objective for this student? For one of my students, the only objective was that he went to a new place and wasn't in a super anxious mode in a new place. And so that was the only objective for him, was to be able to handle this new place. For other students, they got much more out of it. They were able to do the art projects, they followed around and interacted with the exhibits. So really knowing what the objective is. So if you have a student in your class, is the objective for them to have a social interaction in a group, or is the objective for them to learn letters and numbers? So you have to decide at the beginning, what is your plan for them during that time?
Here it is, rug time. I have a carpet. I don't know if you can see it. And I always pull over my chair. And we do conflict resolution as part of my health unit, our health lessons. I sit with the 2 children that are having the conflict, or the 3, or the 2 groups, whatever it may be. And I don't know if that's saved by the bell or...
Keep going.
Anyway, then we discuss it on the carpet. We find out how one group feels. This group has to listen. They can't speak. And then I find out the other group, and we see if we can come up with a solution, a compromise. Person that's hurt, I usually start with. If they have hurt feelings, I feel hurt because you called me a name, you this. And then the other person paraphrases. I hear you're hurt because I, and then this person gets to speak. Well, what happened was my side of the story, and then this person paraphrases what they heard, and then you don't get into the same conflict as was outside, inside. They have to listen to each other.
Establish relationships, establish knowledge of learning styles, learning strengths and needs immediately.
Definitely observe other teachers. As new teachers, we're always so afraid that other people will think, oh no, they're going to judge me. But don't be afraid of that. There actually is some ATA funding for people to go and do observation days, so take advantage of that.
I usually don't check the CUME files till the end of September, because I want to be able to make the assessment. But when I was first teaching, I must say I did check the CUME files before I started teaching, like way before September, end of August. Then I think once you've got a benchmark of where they're at, from there, then every lesson that you teach, you modify or enrich as needed. I love to teach in themes or units, whatever the buzzword is of the teaching at this time. For example, if I'm teaching a mystery theme, then all children would read mystery stories. Some would be reading at a grade 1 level, some might be reading Nate the Great, Cam, which is about a grade 2 level reading. Someone might be reading in grade 6 or 7, which are the Hardy Boys and the Nancy Drews series, grade 6, 7. So they're all involved in mystery, and we talk about vocabulary, and it's at each of their levels. upper level may be able to do detective and investigator, and your younger ones may need to do clues and footprints and those kinds of words. So you build your whole theme or your unit according to one theme, and then you can modify and differentiate in all those areas.
And then be kind to yourself, because mistakes happen. We've all done it. We all try new things, and you have to let yourself make some mistakes. And you might blow a few lessons, but that's okay. You'll learn from them.
And it's kind of interesting, I have an intern in the school, we met this morning, had one of our meetings, and I said, what was the thing, we were going back through her incredible lesson planning, and I said, so how did that work? What did you discover when you have your, like the plans are loving, you've got your sponge activities, and she said to me, well, it's on paper, but I only know the kids who can use them. By the second week I knew why they were there for those ones, but there's just so much more. What I learned is they finish at different times, and I said, yeah, so you can plan everything, but you think in your mind they're all going to, then what happens? And she said, yes. The big motivator for me was, if you don't finish, you can't go out for recess, and then they get stuff done. She said, I'm not particularly proud of that profession, but that's what worked.